Good morning, Clearbranch kids. Today is the start of a brand new month, and that means a whole new theme. And not only are we kicking off a new month today and a new theme, but we're kicking off our summer. And this month, as well as during VBS and this summer, we're going to be learning all about how to live and to love like Jesus. So today we're looking at a passage from a letter written by the Apostle Paul. Now you may remember that just recently we talked about how Paul and his friend Silas had been working in Philippi and were wrongly arrested and thrown in prison. And it wasn't much longer after that Paul left. He moved on to another place. But he stayed in touch with his friends in Philippi by writing them letters, sometimes letters of encouragement, sometimes letters to give them instruction. And this passage comes from a letter where he was talking to them, trying to give them instructions about how they should live. And in this passage, he wrote to them that our work as Christians is to try to model ourselves as much about after Jesus as we can. In other words, that we needed to make it our work to try to make choices that Jesus would make, to try to love others like Jesus would love, and to other words, model ourselves in the way that Jesus showed us how to live when he was here on earth. So what does that look like? Because after all, we remember first of all that Jesus was God's son, and he was the only perfect person. While he gave up being heavenly to be here on earth with us when God sent him here, and so he was human. He did get hungry, he did get thirsty, he felt the human things that we feel, but he was the only human that put everyone ahead of himself at all times. He put their wants and needs ahead of his own. And then he gave up his life in order to save us from the consequences of the things that we had done wrong. Now, then, after all that, as if it wasn't enough, Jesus died and was resurrected. He made it possible for each of us to have a relationship with God forever. And with all that in mind, now we think, okay, Paul is telling us that we should live like Jesus. How is that possible? That seems so completely overwhelming. Jesus was God's son and he was perfect. Of course, he showed God's love perfectly. But God knows that we can't automatically just be like Jesus. But what we can do is we can start the journey of trying to live like Jesus. And the first step is just to choose to follow Jesus and to spend our time getting to know him in prayer and discovering all that the Bible says about his amazing life. The more that you spend time with Jesus over time, you'll become more and more like Jesus on the inside. And as you allow God's Spirit to work through you, it will become easier and more natural to act like Jesus as you respond to others. It takes work, but you'll become more peaceful, encouraging, accepting, forgiving, and caring. Over time, we can all begin to live like Jesus.